morning, everybody. How's it going today? Chelsea Face here. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and be sure to like this video and subscribe if you're new here. I put out all kinds of bookish content every single week, and I'm just excited for you to be here. So let's get into this. Today I'm going to be reviewing the book Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Let me just grab my copy up here. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is a fairly short novel, and I just really felt like I needed to write a review on this one in particular because it's kind of different from what I usually read. So I just thought that I would tell you guys all about it and try not to spoil it too much, but while also giving you a rundown of what to expect from reading this and if you should pick it up or not. Here's a question I want to start this video with. What would you do if you could go back in time? Is there anything that you would change or someone you would talk to, or what would you say to them? Okay, well, what about if you only had enough time for your coffee to get cold? So you get a cup of coffee and you have that long to do what you need to do. Still worth it? Okay, well, what if you add a bunch of rules to that? Like you can only drink the coffee out of a specific cup when it's poured from a specific container on a specific tray. You can only drink the coffee when it's poured by a specific person. You can only stay as long as till it's cold, and you can't move from the seat that you're in, so you have to stay in the coffee shop. Only people who have been in that shop before are the ones you can visit. You can't change anything that's happened in the future or the past. You still want to travel? That's kind of what this book is. It's a story about this cafe in Tokyo that is kind of underground. No one really knows about it, but except like the people who have been, or the reporters who talked about this, because this phenomenon is known about in this world. But people saw that it was useless because you couldn't change anything. So they decided just forget it. You know, they reported about it and talked about it, but nobody really took advantage of it because you can't really change anything. So what's the point of going back in time or forward, you know? Our story here follows 4 different perspectives. We're given 4, I guess, shorter stories within this little book, and it's following a different person or people who wish to go back in time, or eventually do go back in time or forward in time, to speak to someone who has visited the cafe, kind of be heartfelt and explain something to them, and, you know, divulge some information or to beg for something. These characters are told that they do not get to change anything. Like you can't change anything. You can say whatever you want, you can shoot people, it will not change anything that happens in this. So these characters are really doing it for themselves. At the very end, that is pretty much the consensus of this, which I don't think that's a spoiler. I think that you could pretty much get that from the beginning. If you can't change anything, then why are you doing this? Well, obviously just to make yourself feel better. So in a more graceful way, that is what this book is saying, is that, you know, sometimes we just have to let things go. And even though we don't like the outcome, or we fear what is to come, we just have to accept it and then try to cope with it. And I think that that's a very beautiful, sad, and interesting story. For me personally, this whole book had a very sad, kind of melancholic undertone to it. I did like that though. I think that it's something I don't really read a lot. I don't read a ton of sad books. I don't read a lot of weird feeling books. I tend to read like the same thing over and over again. So that's why I felt like I wanted to tell you guys about it. I've only heard maybe one other person talking about this book, so I think everyone should at least give it a shot. It feels like a play. The way that it's written, I could see this being acted out on a theater stage. I'm pretty sure it has been made into a play based off of some of the little extras in the beginning of the book. So that's very interesting to me. I think that it would be an interesting piece to watch. Not a lot of action happens here, so you're not going to get like a crazy sci-fi tale in this. It's going to be very calm and very just a deep dive into human minds and what we are willing to sacrifice and put up with, and just things you have to deal with as an adult. The first story is about a woman and her ex, her regretting things that happened between them before he leaves, and she wants to go back and talk to him and tell him some things about how she feels, and she hopes that he'll come back for her. And that story, you know, she ends up figuring out what's really going on and kind of has to move on with her life. So that one was a little more young adult-ish, or new adult, of that age range, because we're dealing with a newish couple who he went to work for a gaming company and she stayed behind. And yeah, it's very interesting to hear the reasons why he left and why she stayed. What is going to come of that in the future, and are they going to be together in the future, or is this it for them and she just has to get over it? You know, it deals with the heartbreak of that and the hopefulness in that. She has such little time. And I want to say that the one thing I did not really like about this book, that I'll say, is that every single character, I think there were 4 that went back. I'm not sure if there were any more. But there were 4 characters who either went forward or backward in time, at least, in this book. And every single one of them, every single one of them, when they get there, you think, okay, maybe at the most they've got 5 minutes to do this, maybe 10 if they're lucky, depending on how cold the room is. You think they would get there and then they would just start talking to this person. As soon as the person comes in, they just blah, 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 blah. Like, I have to tell you all this stuff. But they don't. They all freeze up and they all freak out and are in shock. And I understand that, like, if you lost someone very important to you and you're speaking to them again, that you might be in shock because it's been, 20 years since you've seen their face. I get it. But every single character didn't have that same circumstance, and it just felt strange that every single one of them froze up until like the last 20 seconds. And then they started talking, and it's like, you just wasted because they only get one shot at this. You don't get to travel multiple times. That was kind of thrown in here randomly towards the end, that you only get to do it once. And I was like, well, like, what? You should be talking. Like, that pushes my anger forward with that, because like, I would, if it were me and my husband and he passed away, or I knew I was going to die or something, I would be talking his ear off. I would be asking him questions, and I would try to touch his hands. I would do everything I could to absorb his voice and his smell and his, like, seeing him as much as I could. Maybe even taking pictures if that's possible, which I'm not going to spoil that for you or not. Maybe take videos if that's possible. I would do anything that I could to capture him in my mind, because if he was gone, I would want that in my brain, because they say one of the first things to go when someone passes away is their voice. And that's one reason why I like to, record everything in my life. But, I can't imagine just being like, the whole time until like the last 10 seconds. And that's it. That's all you get is like the last 10, 20 seconds, because you wasted this time just staring at them or just chickening out. Like, you just sat there. Like, why even do it? Why even go through all this if you're not going to take advantage of it to its fullest? So that was something I was a little frustrated with this book. It did lead to some very like heartfelt moments at the very end. So, it had its points. I just wish that every story didn't do the same exact thing, because it felt like a very repetitive formula. The second story is about a husband and wife, like an older couple, probably in their like 60s, I can't remember. And the husband is suffering from a memory loss disease. I don't think they specifically say which one, but you can pretty much, tell that it is Alzheimer's. And she wants to travel back in time because her husband wants to give her a note, and he never gave it to her when they were together, because now he doesn't know that they're married, so he doesn't understand why she's around. So she just leaves and she freaks out, and she's like, well, I guess I'll just take care of him the rest of his life and watch over him. And it's really sad. Like, that is something that I am terrified of. That is like my number one fear, is losing my memory. So a story about someone losing everything that they once knew and then still carrying on, like, healthy-ish other than that, it bothers me. I don't think I would want to live if I forgot about everyone and everything I'd ever known and had in my life. That's what's going on. He doesn't really know he has a wife, and he wants to give her a note, and she goes back in time to grab the note and to read it. She finds out how he really feels about things, and he was going to tell her about this, and that one's really, really sad. I really liked that one a lot. It had a lot of things to say about maybe what you think is best for someone who is ill is not what they want. And even if they're not of sound mind at the moment, maybe at one point they had wishes of what you should do if they were out of commission. So, it made me think, maybe me and my husband should discuss things that we want done if we're ever incapacitated and a sense, whether that's mentally or physically. And I just think that that's a really good thing to bring up and talk about with the people you care about, because you want people to know what you wish would happen. If tomorrow I was put in a coma, do I want them to pull the plug, or do I want them to keep trying and forever? Like, that's important for people. And I think that if you truly love someone and want them to be with you as long as possible, that you should ask them about their wishes and maybe jot it down somewhere just in case, or have them write it down or something, because in some places that will really count towards what will actually happen. That was just an interesting conversation that sparked, so I really liked that one too. That's all of the stories I'm really going to cover in this, because the other two I could spoil the heck out of them, and I don't want to do that for you because they're connected. The last two are. I think they're very beautiful. One of them is about a set of sisters, one who owns a bar and one who works at a hotel, and then the other story is about another set of family members who travel to the future. So that one's really, really cool to read about, because it involves a lot of tragedies and a lot of heartbreak and a lot of regret for something that you literally have no control over. And that one really gets to you, But that's all I'm going to say about those two, because they are very spoilery. I feel like those are much more interesting stories than the first two. Overall, I would recommend this book. I think that if you are interested in something that feels kind of sad, but also hopeful at the very end, the hope doesn't come until I think the very, very end, when you realize what this has been all about, I recommend it. I think that a lot of people might not like this because it is so slow, and it took me a little while to get through it, I'm not gonna lie to you, but it was good. I think that overall it has some good writing. The characters are realistic. They don't feel like characters. They feel like people that you're just watching from a godlike view, and they had flaws, and they were good and bad people in this. There were people who were sick and people who were going to die, and it feels like, you're getting a piece of people's lives. And the cafe is really just the headquarters for all of that to happen. And yeah, I really like it. I think that other than the cover being an absolutely adorable, gorgeously beautiful cover, it's an interesting story that more people should read. I haven't seen a ton of people talking about this, and I think more people should read it. Definitely something I've never read before, so I hope you guys will check that out. I ended up giving it, I think, either 3 or 4 stars. It's truly unique. I think that even if it's not like the best book I've ever read in my life, it is interesting. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think of it if you've read it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe if you're new here. I hope to review more books soon. I want to review some newer books and maybe some older books, depending on what I can get my hands on. And I'll see you guys soon. Have a fantastic day. Bye, guys.